if you don't know where to get started, then look at what's in front of you and really try to distill what you see as success into the smallest manageable and accomplishable thing, and then do that one thing. And then once that one thing is done, do that same process. Figure out what the next tiny, manageable, accomplishable thing is, and do that next thing. And when you do that every day and you build a pattern of progress, you'll be pretty surprised at how far you get.
Hey everyone, this is Devin Miller here at the Inventive Journey. I'm your host, Devin Miller, the serial entrepreneur that's also the founder and CEO of Miller IP Law, where we help startups and small businesses with their patents and trademarks. And today on the podcast, we have another great guest. Name is Mitch. And Mitch started his career out at Ernst Young, decided that wasn't for him. So he packed up, moved all his belongings to San Francisco, decided to wanted to be part of the tech community and the startup community. Friends put him in touch with Eventbrite, I think is right.
Yep,
and then from Eventbrite, stayed there for a while, and then decided, hey, I can do this better. I'm going to go tour the world, do my backpacking trip through Spain, and maybe start a business and move back. And now doing what he'll tell you a little bit more about his business today. So welcome to the podcast.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me.
So I gave you a little bit of an intro, but maybe if you want to share just a little bit more of your journey and how things are going.
Yeah, absolutely. So I started about 4 years ago a company called Join It. And Join It is a SaaS platform for small, medium-sized nonprofits to sell and track membership.
I don't mean to. SaaS is software as a service, just for anybody that doesn't know what a SaaS is. So
you got it. Sorry, I'll try to
software. No, I just
define the lingo.
People in. So go ahead. Sorry, didn't mean to jump in.
No, absolutely. So we provide software for nonprofits to sell and track their membership. So the typical customer would be like a professional association that you might join, or a charity. And we even serve like local yoga studios that need to charge a monthly membership for people to attend their classes.
Okay, so you did that, and now I think that's a good summary, and it gives people an idea of kind of what you're doing and how you're doing it. Now, as the name implies, we do the journey. So starting now from the end point, now let's back up and start to where your journey started and how you got to doing Join It.
Yeah, perfect. So as you mentioned, I started my career right after college at Ernst & Young, and I was doing IT auditing, and it was the driest thing I think I've ever done. Part of my job was walking through data centers and making sure there was like 12 inches of space between the floor and the ground to make sure that it was preventative against floods and things like that, to make sure that the systems that hold financial records and the financial data keeping relies on are resilient, so that it can pass like the SOX testing and come into compliance. And I think I almost fell asleep explaining that. So it's no wonder why I wanted to get out of it pretty quick. And I only lasted a few quarters there before I started looking around. And I was already in San Francisco for that job. And so I was put in touch with a couple startups, and one I eventually joined was Eventbrite. And I had an awesome career at Eventbrite. I actually had a few lives there, where I started on the sales team, was there for about a year, and then moved to the marketing team, where I was in charge of partnerships. The typical partnerships I was building were integrations with other software, and you start to see where this goes, where we were building integrations with like MailChimp and WordPress and these other popular SaaS platforms that small businesses were using to connect to Eventbrite. This made sure that their data, like when someone buys a ticket to an event, which is the service that Eventbrite provides, syncs to their other platforms. So someone buys a ticket on Eventbrite, I would be in charge of making the connection so that that information, like the email address associated with the ticket buyer, flows into your MailChimp account, which is email marketing, so that you can email them after the event about your next event.
You're the one to blame that for all the spam email you get every time you sign up with or purchase something for an event. Is that my summary of what happened?
Yeah, pretty much. We help those creators follow up to help keep you informed on their upcoming events. And so I was on the marketing team, leading that initiative for about 2 years before I moved over to the product team to own the product side of that. So started on the business side, building those relationships, driving the integrations to where I actually managed the product that you'd build the integrations on. And the technical people watching the podcast will be familiar with the term APIs, or application programming interface, where that's really the hooks that you build into these different software platforms. So I'd make these APIs talk to each other, and then I was in charge of building new APIs, which would unlock new ways that different platforms could interact and build value for the mutual customers. So I did that for a couple of years, and then something that kept happening was we had customers of Eventbrite asking us to integrate with membership software. So there'd be the yoga studio, for example, that would say, I do all of my classes through Eventbrite, but we have a membership offering, and that membership gets $10 off their tickets. And I really need my membership system to talk to Eventbrite. And at the time, I reached out to a lot of players in this space, because there's definitely a lot of membership solutions out there, and none of them were interested in integrating. And to me, it seemed like a very obvious opportunity, but everyone in the market took this very all-in-one approach, where they provided your membership solution, but also provided your event management solution, and also provided your email marketing solution. They'd bundle it all in one and sell it to the customer. So after being hit in the head with this idea of integrated membership management for what felt like 2 years, I said, fine, I'm going to go build this. And so I did. So it was really an obvious problem.
But you were at Eventbrite, you had this idea, and you decided, okay, hit you in the head long enough. I'm going to go do this. I'm going to do my startup. But then in the middle of that, you decided, but I'm going to take a trip to Spain for a little while.
Yeah.
Right.
The way I rationalized it to my parents at the time was San Francisco, as everyone knows, is one of the most expensive cities in the country, right? And so my apartment in San Francisco would have crushed my burn rate, or the amount of the rate at which I was spending my life savings on starting this new company if I stayed in San Francisco. So it was only logical for me to go to Spain, where I found an apartment that was a quarter of the cost and bigger, and in a new country. It was another benefit to San Francisco. So I extended my burn rate. It was a very smart financial move, as well as fun adventure.
We'll go with a fun adventure. Smart financial move. You could go out to the middle of Wyoming.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure rent would be even cheaper than Spain. You might not be as fun of an adventure.
When you're building the business, you got to make sure you're still living your life at the same time. That's a big philosophy.
Right. So you went, and when did Spain? And I think you moved around for a little while. When we talked before, you went from Spain, you went to New York, you went to Paris, and then you ended up coming back to California. And so when within all of your world travels did you start your current company, or you start JoinUp?
So before Spain, it was incorporated in October 2016. And that was when I got on a flight on October 16th to go to Spain. So that was really a nice benefit as well. You could get this in Wyoming, but being socially isolated.
You could really, certainly get that in Wyoming.
Yeah, exactly. Really helped. I mean, it's kind of a brutalist way to look at it, but being in a space where I wasn't distracted by the normal social life that I had in San Francisco really had me, at least for that short period, it was only 3 months of time, but focus, live, eat, breathe, join it, and build a new product that got to a place where it was viable, and we had paying customers by the end of that 3 months.
So if you're to do it, you basically took a world tour, decided I'm going to go have fun, but then at the same time, because you're basically software as a service or SaaS, you're able to build it from anywhere, so it doesn't limit you. You don't have to be tied to an office or a specific location. Did you have any team at that time, or is it really just you and I'm going to code it all myself?
Yeah, 100% me. So the we is talking about the corporation of Join It, but it was just Mitch at the time.
Okay, so you did that, and you said it took you about 3 months to build it, or how long did it take you to build it?
Yeah, 3 months. And it is kind of a funny timeline to try to quote, because I'm still building it today. I'll still be building it for the next however many years, and it's never done. And
Sure.
so we
At least
we
your
never had this like,
generation one was out.
yeah. I mean, even that might be misleading into like how we built the product, because it went from like zero point 0.01 to 0.02 to 0.03 to 0.04. Like there's never like one version that we were working towards. We were shipping, again, the funny I was shipping code every day, like literally every day, to the software, and someone would sign up. Like we had sign-ups 2 weeks after I put up the site, but they'd get to a point where they'd be like, oh, it doesn't do this thing, and I expected it to do that thing. So we probably got our first customer in October or November, but it wasn't a viable product probably until January of that year.
Okay. I think there's some wisdom in that, in the sense that you can build it out, and there's always, and that's the cursing and the blessing with software, is you can build a lot of features. And it's what I have a friend that, and somebody else in the business that I've helped co-found, that always calls it feature creep, right? Where you can have 20 different features, and every time it's like, well, we could add this, and we could add this, we could do this. And yet if you never get it out and get it in front of customers, and you never actually have it in front of them, you can build a whole bunch of features that may be useless, and you miss the mark of not having those. So I think there's wisdom in, hey, even if it's getting it out there, getting the feedback, knowing what to adjust, and making it better is going to make it, it's going to be a better way to release it than going to, trying to make a whole bunch of features and then wasting half of your time on it. So I think that's certainly a wise way to do it. And then you can get that feedback. So how did you, so that's a fairly quick timeline to both code a product, software as a service, get it launched, and start getting customers. So how did you, within all of your world travels, was it just purely a website and SEO play? People were looking up? Did you have customers that you were reaching out from previous contacts, or how did you kind of get that launch going?
Yeah, so the initial, like the first probably 100 customers predominantly came through integrations that we built. So, and this was like the program that I worked on at Eventbrite was the API platform so that other companies could connect. My company became one of those companies that connected. And most of these larger companies have carrots to try to get developers to build off of their platform. And a lot of that looks like getting you in front of their customers. So we built integrations with Eventbrite, we built integrations with MailChimp, we built integrations with Stripe, which is a payment processor, and then they introduced us to their users. And that was where our first couple customers came from.
Okay. So you do that, and you get a couple customers, you continue to figure out what they want, to iterate through it. Was it just straight as soon as you launched it, everything went perfect and successful, built it out? Were there any hills and valleys, or how did the launch go for you?
I mean, it went pretty well. The nice thing and the worst thing about software as a service is, and I'll kind of expand on this for the audience, is with software as a service, you're selling access to your software, and typically it comes with recurring billing. So you sign someone up and they pay you every month to access your software. And so when you acquire that customer, it's pretty reliable that they're going to stick around, and a few might leave every month. So it's really valuable when you get them on board and you can build your business, and it makes your revenue look like this. Like there's not a lot of software as a service companies that have this like beautiful S curve beautiful like curve that you see with Silicon Valley companies. A lot of them look like this very long, slow, linear graph of growth, and that's what we've had. And so it hasn't been the peaks and valleys of 1 month having riches, the next month being broke. It's just been a very long slog. And there's a term in the industry called the slow ramp of death, because a lot of people don't plan for how long this will take to actually build the momentum of this recurring revenue engine, where you have a decent accumulation of customers to be profitable. So it was the downside was the long, slow slog of it, but it never had like the kind of crash that you might see in like consumer apps where you build up this big buzz, you launch, you get press, and then the next month it's crickets. Or someone, they'd stick around, but it was just a slog to get enough people to be profitable.
How did you, and so how long did it take you to reach that profitability point? How long were you holding your breath, waiting for that curve to ramp up far enough?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, the biggest expense is obviously labor, so me, and then deciding. And there's another term in the industry called ramen profitability, where it's like, are you profitable enough to pay yourself enough of a salary to live off top ramen? Is where it comes from. And so we were ramen profitable probably after a year and a half or so, where I was finally paying myself to where I wasn't drawing from savings. And of course that, those lines on the graph got closer and closer, where in the first month it was all savings, and by a year in it was maybe half, and then by a year and a half I was finally break even. But it wasn't until a few quarters ago that I paid myself what I was making before I left Eventbrite, which was my personal goal. Like, if I can start this company and get to a place where I'm closer to what was my market rate salary, that was kind of the big shining goal that we achieved. So
We/I.
yeah.
You
Well,
did it. You did it.
now the team
pat
is
yourself on the back because there's
yeah. So now the team is 3 folks. So when I say we in the present,
now there is an
yeah.
actual we.
Yeah, so we do have someone on customer support, and she's lovely. She takes care of all our customers in a really wonderful way. And then we have someone else who heads up all of our marketing initiatives. So they help us find even more customers.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So now you went from Eventbrite, did your tour around the world, and amazingly at the same time started your business, got to profitability, or got to ramen profitability. Now you've got to enough profitability, replaced your salary, bringing on some additional people, customer support, and people to help to offset and to get even more done. Where do you see the next 6 to 12 months go for you? What's the plan or trajectory, or what's in store next?
Yeah, I mean, this year, 2020, global pandemic aside, was about what I would call productizing our acquisition and marketing channels. So we were growing at a decent clip every month, but it was sometimes it seemed like it was out of our control how much we grow month to month, and we didn't quite have the levers down. Like, the idea that the channel that we grow from Google AdWords grows at this much a month, and if we invest a little more money into AdWords, then we can accelerate that channel. That's the perfect place that you want to be in a business, because then you can be the master of your own destiny a bit more. So our growth felt very ad hoc last year, and that was one of the reasons that we brought on our head of marketing, was so they can productize it and turn it into more of a growth machine. So that's what we've been working on, and it's even forgetting the macroeconomic headwinds of a global pandemic, we have been growing faster this year than we were last year, which, as a business is getting larger, doesn't happen all that often. So it's really good to see, and I continue to expect for us to step on the gas a little bit to continue growing this year. And then, I mean, more broadly, when people reach out, because when you're a profitable SaaS company of our size, you have a lot of people that are looking to invest or potentially acquire. I give the same response, which is that I wake up every day excited to work on Join In. I'm really loving this job and this career, so I have no plans to sell or to move on to the next thing. I'm really excited to be working on it. So keep steady in general to continue growing the business.
Well, that's exciting. So it sounds like some great great things that are to come, and a great journey yet in front of you. So that's exciting. So
yeah.
Well, as we reach towards the end of the podcast, I always ask 2 questions. So maybe we'll jump to those now. So the first question I always ask is, what was the worst business decision you ever made?
Gosh, I don't know people give such specific ones, but I definitely have one. Early on in the days of Join It, I coded a really bad bug into the platform where there was like a never-ending loop that would send an email, and it picked one customer to just send an email, and I probably sent about 10,000 emails. So I DDoS, or like a huge denial of service attack towards one email that was on our platform, and it was by far the most embarrassing thing I've ever done. And I had to go to them because they took a chance on us early, and it was a very humbling experience. That was definitely the worst decision I've ever made.
Were they understanding? Did you lose the customer, or how did that end up working out?
Super lovely. They're still a customer today, and I'm so grateful for it.
Well, that's awesome. No, I like the specificities, and I always like, it's one of those where you can look. Oftentimes you learn from your mistake, and that's one that I've learned in software and had others that oftentimes you want to release things as quick as you can, and then you try and be also trying. You have I want to release as quick as I can. I want to debug it to make it perfect, and you're never going to catch all the bugs, and so you always have all these competing interests, and you're trying to balance all of them as to how much testing you do. There's always those things that no matter how much you test, until you get it out in the wild, it never pops up.
Yeah.
So I think it's a great mistake to learn from.
Yeah. Even with testing, I could have never imagined how we would have tested for this scenario that they had set up. There's just so many edge cases. It's something sometimes you just run into, I guess.
Yep. So, all right. So now we jump to the second question, which is somebody that was just getting into startups or wanting to get into startups, kind of in that mode or that phase of life. What would be the one piece of advice you'd give them?
Get started. Like one of my big things is that I hate when people play gatekeeper, especially in tech and software. People will say, "Oh, you need to use this framework," or "You need to be to do X, you need to be a real developer, like have a CS degree or something like that." And I don't buy any of that. I think if I can build a software business, literally anyone can. So get started. And then the second follow on to that would be, if you don't know where to get started, then look at what's in front of you and really try to distill what you see as success into the smallest manageable and accomplishable thing, and then do that one thing. And then once that one thing is done, do that same process. Figure out what the next tiny, manageable, accomplishable thing is, and do that next thing. And when you do that every day and you build a pattern of progress, you'll be pretty surprised at how far you get.
Oh, that's awesome. Okay, now I'm going to ask my one bonus question, which I'm only asking to you.
Okay.
Which is, because most people, excuse me, I got all choked up asking you the question. No, there we go. What are most people, they haven't traveled as much as you. So you've been to San Francisco, you've been to Spain, you've been to New York, you've been to now a couple different places in California. Favorite place to live, which one is it?
Oh gosh. I mean, my favorite place, and the place that I would move tomorrow if I could, would be London. With Eventbrite, I did 6 months there after Eventbrite acquired a British company, and so I got to live there and made amazing friends and good culture. They have good work-life balance, and I just love it there. That's where, yeah.
All right, so London's a place to live. All right, I'll make a mental note.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, so as we wrap up, people want to use your product. They want to get involved. They want to apply to get a job there. They want to do whatever. What's the best way to reach out to you?
Definitely. So joinit.org is where you can find all about Join It. And then I'm on Twitter at Colleran, Colleran.
All right. Well, they'll either check out the website and or Twitter. And certainly anybody that's looking for some service or software as a service for what you guys are providing at Join It, I recommend that they reach out to you guys. And you guys, looks like you're doing a great job and only have a great journey left in front of you. So awesome. Thank you for coming on the podcast. It's been fun to have you on, hear your journey. Wish you all the best of the next leg of your journey. And then for those of you that are wanting to tell your journey and come on the podcast, certainly feel free to apply at inventivejourney.com. Love to hear your everybody's journeys. For those of you that are subscribers and listeners, make sure to subscribe so that you can catch all the new episodes, including this one, and get that notification. And certainly if you need any help with patents or trademarks, feel free to reach out to us at Miller IP Law, and we're definitely here to help. Thanks again for coming on. It was a pleasure. It was fun to talk with you, and wish you the best.
Thanks, Evan. Take care.
Okay, bye.